On today's episode, we discuss a new injury, a rotation update, and some changes defensively. That and more from day 2 of Lakers training camp.
Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another episode. On today's show, we're going to be discussing 5 takeaways from Lakers training camp. Before we get started, I just want to let you guys know I've officially submitted my YouTube membership tiers for approval from YouTube. So once that is approved, we will be going live and launching it. So stay tuned for an announcement on that, likely be live tomorrow. Second thing is I just launched a Buha's Block Discord server. So that is live. I posted it on the YouTube community tab. I will likely be tweeting that out as well. And it will also be on the show notes on YouTube. So would love for you guys to check it out and consider joining another platform and forum for the late night gang to hang out and talk about the Lakers, talk about the NBA, talk about whatever you want to talk about, as long as we are keeping it respectful. And it's meant to be fun and respectful. And if we could do those two things, I think it'll be a great platform. And we'll also tie into the memberships where there will be a tier 1 lounge for tier 1 of the memberships, tier 2 lounge, and a tier 3 lounge. So if you guys are signing up for one of the 3 tiers, then you will get certain access and privileges in the Discord. So never run a Discord before. I've just recently joined it, a couple months ago. So I'm still figuring it out. Hope you guys give me some grace and some patience with that, but trying my best to navigate the channels and stuff. And once the memberships are live, I will be adding the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 channels. But I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys on a new platform. With that said, let's get into our 5 takeaways. Takeaway number 1 is add Maxi Kleber to the injury report. We got word from JJ Redick that there weren't many updates from yesterday in terms of injuries. LeBron was once again a limited participant, primarily taking part in individual drills. That was status quo, same thing he did yesterday. Gabe Vincent was a full participant, so he went from a modified or limited participant yesterday to a full participant today, and then no updates or changes with Marcus Smart and Adu Thero. The one update we got, though, which was a negative one, was Maxi Kleber tweaked his quad yesterday and was held out of practice today as a precaution. He is going to be getting an MRI this afternoon. And JJ said, hopefully it is not serious. It did not seem to have a serious tone based on the way that JJ was talking about it. But you never know with quad injuries for players in their early 30s, especially a guy in Kleber who has now dealt with several injuries over the last few years. And one thing that stood out to me later in JJ's availability was he was asked about the guard rotation and how that was going to work and what was going to determine that in training camp and the preseason. And he said health first and foremost and availability. But then he did go on to name some of the players who he views as guaranteed rotation players and with guaranteed playing time, guaranteed spots. And I'll be getting into those players in a moment. But that stood out to me with the Maxi thing because we've had this question of the training camp battle for the backup center spot between Maxi and Jackson Hayes, potentially Jared Vanderbilt and some smaller looks, potentially Adu Thero and some smaller looks. But Adu Thero is not currently practicing and he is projected to be back next week. But again, with all Lakers injuries, we will see. And then Maxi Kleber now suffered a setback, and we'll see how long he is potentially out for. So it could just be Jackson Hayes by default, based on how things are shaping up in terms of the rotation and health and availability. So this is a notable development. Also, depending on the severity here, like this could impact Maxi's trade value down the road. It doesn't sound like, I would assume if it was a more serious quad injury, there would be a more notable update. And again, there's a lot of moving parts here. So we'll await the results on that and get some more clarity, hopefully this evening, if not by tomorrow morning. But this could have some ripple effects, however small, with the rotation and potentially Maxi's trade value or just league-wide perception. That to me was the most notable thing from camp today. And again, back-to-back days, the Lakers have had 4 players, either limited or non-participants in camp. 4 official roster players among the 14. So that is not ideal. It's not been an ideal start for LA from a health perspective. And unfortunately, this has been something that we have become accustomed to. This is an annual tradition. As I said yesterday, thank you to Vuori for sponsoring this video. As an NBA reporter who travels every other week, one of my biggest travel hacks is being as comfortable as possible. That's why it felt so natural to partner with Vuori. I've been wearing their clothes for over 4 years. I live and travel in their joggers. And on an off day, there's nothing better than putting on their seaside pullover hoodie or the Ponto jogger. It feels like you have nothing on. So whether I'm going to grab a coffee and work in a coffee shop, or I'm looking at some new gear, or just walking around getting some exercise, there is nothing more comfortable than wearing Vuori clothing. I love and wear Vuori. My wife wears it. All my friends wear it. So I cannot recommend it enough. Thank you to Vuori for sponsoring this video, and make sure you check out the link below and or go to a store in person and check it out for yourself. Now let's get back to the episode. Takeaway number 2. I wanted to expound upon the LeBron topic from yesterday and give a couple of updated thoughts, because I think I came at it yesterday from more of a big picture. Like, I don't think we don't have clarity yet. Is LeBron going to miss games? Is he going to reduce his minutes? Like, what is this going to look like? So because of the nature of the injury and because nothing had been set in stone in terms of this is the plan, and it feels like something that they're going to determine as they go along, and based on how LeBron's feeling and how the team is feeling about LeBron's health. And I think I came at it from a very macro perspective. I do want to say, though, in thinking about LeBron and in his absence more, this is a bad break for the Lakers right now, at least temporarily, if not longer term, just because the chemistry that you develop in training camp and the preseason, the on-court reps, like, this is the most the Lakers are going to practice all season. Just the nature of the NBA season, it's every other day with games and travel, and you only get so many practices. So this first week of practice, the Lakers are practicing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before heading over to Palm Springs for their game on Friday. They'll be practicing next week, but these first couple of weeks, it's the most days of consecutive practice that they're going to get. Like, even All-Star break, they have several days off, and like, in-season tournament, I guess that could be another pocket of the season where they get to practice more. But like, this is it in terms of practicing and getting these reps and setting that foundation. And the fact that LeBron is not available, and like, it's understandable, to be clear. I'm like, two things can be true where I think it's both the best thing for LeBron long term and his health and his availability, and getting him to a point where he can be as close to healthy as possible, or as close to 100% as possible later in the season. At the same time, I think this is a valuable opportunity to establish that on-court chemistry and synergy between Luka, LeBron, and Austin. And I think LeBron, like JJ and Austin, both yesterday and today, talked about just LeBron's basketball IQ and how they are able to kind of through osmosis or just through communication, figure out how they want to play together. And that is certainly true to an extent, right? And Luka and LeBron are two of the smartest basketball players of all time. I think Austin is another high basketball IQ player. So I think those three can figure it out, even if it is primarily talking through things or doing walkthroughs and shoot-arounds and some limited stuff, film work together, whatever. But I still think you can't replicate on-court reps, and that was again kind of the theme to me of today's availability from JJ to an extent, was like, this team and teams in general exist on paper until you start the season, and then once you start the season, it's about who's out there, who's available, who's healthy. So right now, I mean, even the starting group exists on paper more so than in reality, because there's no LeBron and there's no Marcus Smart. So big picture, I think, as JJ said yesterday, uncharted territory with LeBron, age 41, year 23. They want to get him to the finish line in one piece. And we still don't know what that's going to look like in terms of sitting out games or having his minutes reduced or role reduced. Whatever that looks like, that is yet to be determined. And I get that. I think there is the underbelly of it, though, which is a missed opportunity in training camp, in practice, to get the on-court reps with the rest of the starting group, the closing group, just key rotation guys. You can't simulate that. you can't replicate that without just being on the floor together. So I think there is going to be maybe a little bit of a slower start to the season to an extent as they figure out some of those wrinkles at the beginning of the regular season, assuming LeBron is healthy and available then. So I just wanted to continue that conversation. I assume it's going to be something we talk about a lot through the rest of training camp and the preseason, but that was my second round of thoughts on the LeBron discourse. Takeaway number 3 is we got a peek into some of the rotation locks and potentially the starting group for Friday in Palm Springs. So JJ was asked a question about the guard rotation and how he's going about determining that in training camp and the preseason. And as aforementioned, he first said health and availability, and like that's going to be the biggest determining factor with who plays and who doesn't. But assuming that everyone gets healthy or a lot of these things are temporary just to the preseason, just to camp, he said that Luka, Austin, Marcus Smart, Gabe Vincent, and Jake LaRavia are all players who are going to play. Those are rotation locks, and the rest of the group is going to be up for competition. So he did name that's a wide backcourt group. Of note, Dalton Knecht was the biggest omission. We can debate whether Dalton is more of a guard or a forward, but you cannot tell me that Dalton is more of a forward than Jake LaRavia. Jake LaRavia is taller than Dalton. He is heavier than Dalton. He's stronger than Dalton, and he plays against 4s and 5s more than Dalton. So if the Lakers are already positioning LaRavia as a guard or something of a hybrid and mentioning him as a lock, I think that means that for now, Dalton is on the outside looking in with the rotation, or at least he's more of a fringe rotation player. He is not a lock. He is not in the primary rotation. And if you've been listening to me talk about the rotation and lineups and just where the Lakers are at all summer, you would know this. I said, the Lakers have a clear top 9, and I think that 10th spot is going to come down to Dalton versus a backup center. I would assume that JJ's talked about wanting to, just having more depth and some of the mistakes of last season and playing too small last season at times. So I would assume that the backup center, whether it's Jackson or Maxi, is going to be the 10th man at least. So I think there's a clear top 10 of some combination of the starters plus the 6th guy, whether it's Rui or Marcus, but then Jake, Gabe, Vando, and then probably Jackson right now. And that's your top 10. Also, LaRavia shared that he has been playing on Luka's team, the purple team, in scrimmages. And the reason why that's important is Luka is, of course, going to start on this team. And me doing some sleuthing and just putting some of the pieces together, seeing what jersey colors guys have worn, hearing JJ talk about it, it's been clear that the starters are wearing purple and the bench players are wearing gray/white. And looking at who's been wearing what, both in day 1 and day 2, it's clear to me that DeAndre Ayton, Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, and Luka Doncic are 4 of the starters. Now we know Jake LaRavia is the 5th guy. So again, DeAndre Ayton, Rui, and Jake as the front court, Austin and Luka as the backcourt. It is worth noting that there's been no LeBron and no Marcus Smart through the first couple days. Gabe Vincent did return, but did not join the starting group. So just looking at ahead to Friday's game against Phoenix, it sounds like based on how the first couple days of camp have gone, the likely starting lineup would be DeAndre Ayton, Rui, Jake, Austin, and Luka, and that makes sense. But it also indicates that, as we've previously discussed, this 7th man competition, Jake LaRavia has been raved about media day, during camp, and it seems like he right now is the leader in the clubhouse for that 7th spot, ahead of Gabe and ahead of Vando. He is the guy starting in there over them. And I just think based on the type of player that JJ likes, he loves shooting, and Jake is the best shooter of those 3. I'm not sure yet what Vando's role is going to ultimately be, but I have been saying that I think Jake is going to be ahead of him because of the shooting element. Though a topic today was Vando's shot. Jake said that he has looked much better as a shooter. JJ said Vando's looked really good athletically. So maybe he ends up being ahead of Gabe in the pecking order and he's like the 8th man, but I don't see him jumping Rui or Marcus or Jake at this point with where things stand. So just wanted to offer some insight into the rotation and some of the lineup stuff. And I don't think Jake's going to be a starter long-term. I think LeBron will slide in and move him to the bench. And then the question is just Marcus versus Rui, who is the fifth starter. But I also want to say, for those wanting Austin to come off the bench, JJ has been talking about him as a starter, as a top 3 player on this team, as one of the captains, as one of the offensive leaders, as one of the most important players. So for those who want Austin off the bench, I think you will be disappointed. I do not see that happening. Takeaway number 4 for me is defensive changes. Last season, JJ talked about this team in a transparent manner defensively, where he was up front. He was like, we are more of a team defense than an individual defense. We're going to need everybody to communicate, to shift, to rotate, to be in the right spots. And we don't have the elite stoppers. We don't have the elite defensive personnel. And this was more so post AD or even when they had AD, it was more so outside of AD. They didn't have the elite personnel that some of the other top teams in the West have. And so I asked him, now that you have Marcus, who presumably will be healthy at some point in the near future, you have Vando, who's had his first healthy offseason in a couple of seasons. Is that going to change how you view the defense? Is that going to change how you guys, like what you do defensively? And JJ said yes. He wants to use Marcus Smart and JJ Vanderbilt in particular as point of attack defenders who can ball hawk opposing ball handlers 96 feet, 48 feet, and make their lives difficult. So that was, I think, something the Lakers didn't do that well last year, in part because they didn't have the requisite personnel for it. But JJ is confident now that with Marcus on the roster and with Vando healthy, and he said glowing things about Vando in terms of his athleticism, the way he looks physically compared to last season, compared to previous seasons, that Vando is in great shape and looking more like himself. If those two things are true and those guys can be those on-ball disruptors, I think that is a notable development for the defense. Now, I'm still skeptical about the Lakers defense overall, especially if they decide to start Rui Hachimura over Marcus Smart. I think there will be ripple effects with that, which is how the bench units operate. And I don't think that starting group, I just think that's clearly a below average to bad starting group defensively if you're starting DeAndre, LeBron, Rui, Austin, and Luka. But we'll see how they navigate that. But I thought it was encouraging to hear that JJ is trying to mix things up a bit in terms of adding more ball pressure and just discomfort to opposing ball handlers. That said, he did note that the base coverage and structure of the defense is likely going to be similar in terms of the shifts and rotations and how he wants to play defensively. So didn't get clarity on the switching part of that, but would assume that that's going to be a big part of the Lakers' base defense. But he did say they will make some tweaks as things go, and that there are always tweaks either in terminology or just the way they structure some of the coverages. So there will be some changes overall, but I thought it was notable hearing that he has more confidence in Marcus Smart and this version of Vando compared to the perimeter defenders they had last season. And then final thing is a big camp emphasis, and I touched on this a little bit yesterday, has been structure within early offense and JJ really wanting to hit ahead passes and either get out in transition or immediately get into that first action. That's been a big theme from both JJ, but also the players whenever we ask them about what the points of emphasis are, what are the things they're focusing on. And as a continuation of that, JJ has mentioned running as much as possible, that he wants the guys just being more active, expending more energy and getting in better shape and better conditioning. And I mean, really reading between the lines here, it feels like he didn't, and this goes back to the championship shape comments at the end of last season, like he didn't feel like they were in the proper shape to end the season. He didn't feel like they were prepared enough physically. He's talked about wanting to have practiced more and practiced harder in the days leading up to game 1 against Minnesota. And that's clearly a big point of emphasis. So as we look ahead toward Friday and the preseason debut against Phoenix, I think how well they can execute some of these things and how well they can apply what JJ has been emphasizing to them will be interesting. Like that'll be kind of the first test of, okay, you are without LeBron, you're without Marcus, it seems like Gabe's going to play since he was a full participant. Maybe you're without Maxi, you're without Adu. So you only have 10 of your 14 roster guys, and you're playing some two-way guys and some Exhibit 10 guys. But for the top 10 in the rotation, and for most of the first half into maybe the early third, how are you executing your offense off of live balls and also off of inbounds? And can you get out in transition? And then if the first opportunity isn't there, how quickly can you get the ball to a Luka or to an Austin to get into your offense? So that's just been a running theme from the first couple of days that JJ flat out said today that, again, day two, like this has been the biggest point of emphasis, and this has been really the biggest change, he said, for him was more structure and intention going from his first training camp to his second training camp. But that will do it for today's show. Again, we have memberships that will be live on the channel within the next 24 hours. Join the Discord server. And of course, for those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. We hit 30K. We're on the way to 50K. That is the next goal. Of course, 40K along the way, but 50K is the big goal. Hoping to hit that, honestly, by the end of the year, if possible. But if not, by the end of the season, we'll see how realistic that is. But would appreciate you guys who watch regularly but have not yet subscribed to hit that subscribe button. For the rest of you, please be sure to like and comment, turn on channel notifications. And for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back tomorrow. I will talk to you then.